Britain's wildlife is under threat. Only 2% of the country now remains as ancient woodland, and with 1 in 4 British mammals facing extinction, experts believe we have a choice. Act now or risk losing our once vibrant flora and fauna forever. Some believe the key could be found in nature itself through a process called rewilding, an idea that's gained momentum in recent years and put pressure on local authorities to restore low-grade farmland and game hunting land back to their natural state. Rewilding sometimes involves the reintroduction of keystone species such as beavers and wolves. However, the controversial idea has been protested by the agricultural community, who see this as a threat to their livelihood. The debate has even gained some celebrity attention from TV presenter and UN patron of the wilderness, Ben Fogle.
I think rewilding has a place. I think it's going to become even more important. I think if beavers can be, as they have been, successfully reintroduced, I think we should champion that, and I think we should celebrate that, because it was we humans that created, by and large, the loss of many of these creatures and many of the flora and fauna.
I'm Josh Taylor, and I'm on a journey along Britain's south coast to find out more about rewilding and the people on both sides of the debate, those trying to save Britain's wildlife and those trying to save their livelihoods. Having lived on the Isle of Wight for a number of years, I've seen a community divided by this idea of rewilding. I'd like to find out, is rewilding the answer to our climate crisis? If so, who are the people behind this movement? Who are the Rewilders? I'd travelled down to Woodland Valley Farm near Truro to meet Chris Jones, a farmer who'd taken the controversial step of introducing beavers to his land, an animal that was wiped out from the British wilderness in the 1500s and known for its ability to cause flooding. Chris comes from a long line of farmers, and I wondered how that might affect his stance on rewilding. Well, Chris, thanks for inviting me in. What does sort of rewilding mean to you?
I think rewilding has got a slightly bad name in agricultural circles, because people think it means wolves and bears. Typically that's the first thing that will go through their mind, and they don't want to have anything around which is going to either eat their children or eat their animals or whatever. So although that's kind of pretty far-fetched and logical, it is one of those things that comes into people's minds. So I like to talk about restoring ecological function.
Chris took me down to see the beaver enclosure and explain the positive impacts they can have for both farmers and our wildlife.
You can talk about this or any other stream in the country being like a water battery, and without beavers in it you can charge it up really, really fast in heavy rain and it discharges just as quickly. But if you bring the beavers back, they start to repair the battery. So you get this kind of breath in of water and then real slow exhalation.
So unfortunately beavers are mostly active at night. Chris pointed this out where they've just gnawed right through that, and that's from last night. So I'm going to be setting up camera traps to hopefully try and catch some of their movements overnight tonight. I arrived back in the early morning to check on the traps and was greeted by something better. The sighting of a beaver swimming in a British river some 500 years after it had been driven out of the UK.
Okay.
Back at the house, Chris and I looked over some of the camera trap footage. So I've got a couple of shots taken last night, and I want to show you and get your thoughts on. So how does it feel knowing that you're one of the people responsible for beavers being back in this country?
It's really good. I'm just really walking the footsteps of giants. There's the likes of Derek Gallanton who've been at this for a long, long time. I'm playing a supporting role, if you like. Overall, and I hope we've got a collective vision, which means we're looking forward to getting this animal back across the country doing its really important job.
Back on the Isle of Wight, I'd arranged to meet Jamie Marsh from the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust to show me the proposed site for a controversial beaver reintroduction along the Eastern River Yar. When people talk about rewilding, there's a lot of concern, particularly in maybe papers as well. It's been labelled as a fashionable science, so it's introducing the species that look good or bring in the tourism impact rather than what's the most appropriate. So what are your sort of thoughts on that?
I think that's a pretty weak argument, to be honest. I think in this time of environmental awareness, climate crisis, the fact that our climate is changing around us, and it's pretty evident for us all to see, rewilding offers an approach where we can combat all of those things. So to label it as fashionable, I think, is a bit of is a nonsense, really. It is just a bolder approach in, you know, standing up for the environment, really.
Should there be more of a focus on encouraging species that we already have that are in decline rather than reintroducing ones that were once here but have not been for a long time?
I think the key thing you've got to think about is why are they in decline, and almost certainly it's because of loss of habitat. That's going to be the key thing for all this. So rewilding, introducing keystone species, they create habitat for these species that are in decline, and that's the key thing. And at this time of climate crisis, this time of climate change, we feel the beaver could really do wonderful things in this catchment. They are controversial. People have a lot of misguided opinions on them. They don't eat fish, for instance, so they're actually very good for fish.
I wanted to know how rewilding could impact Britain's agricultural community, so I met with Kingsley Hollis, a young farmer who grazes his sheep on bits of land not suitable for crop growing, prime land for rewilding. So what are your thoughts as a young farmer about rewilding?
I think rewilding is a really important thing. It needs to be done in the right place with the right people around it. A lot of, especially the older generation of farming, feel that a much more consultation is needed before these things happen. I mean, they've been doing their job for years upon years upon years on that bit of ground, and then if suddenly something pops up next door that's completely new, of course they're going to be really wary of it. Who wouldn't be wary if you had a council estate built right next to your country house? And I think for any rewilding project to work, there has to be some form of subsidies from the government, because that land in that transitional phase isn't earning you any money. At the end of the day, people still need to be able to eat. We've got a planet that is with a massive growing population, but also on the flip side, I think rewilding is a really important thing for the British countryside, and both arguments can work together. Just needs to be done in the right way.
It was clear from meeting these people that no matter their stance on rewilding, they all shared the same thing: a love of animals and a passion for wildlife. I finished my journey with the belief that rewilding could go a long way in saving our wildlife, but the rest is up to us.